Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone. For this week's episode, I want to talk post-harvest. Now, whether you are in the middle of harvest still, or maybe you're wrapping up, maybe you've been done for a while. For us on our farm, we just wrapped up with harvest. So I'm kind of dealing with some of these post-harvest thoughts or some different things. I want to kind of more or less talk about the mindset of post-harvest. Now, like I said, maybe you are a rancher. Maybe you are in the livestock business to where you're not in harvest at all. So maybe you feel like this won't relate to you, or maybe you're just an ag business owner. Well, what I'm ultimately talking about here is post the busy season. For us, harvest is a very busy season. So I want to talk basically post the busy season, what it's like, what we move into, what we need to kind of shift our mindset towards. And obviously this is called Pioneer Mindset. So we're going to be talking about the mindset of basically post a busy season. So for me, when it comes to harvest time, harvest is fun. I really enjoy harvest. I really think this is the best time of year. It's the time of year when we get to get out and basically harvest what we've worked so hard towards the entire year. But it's just, I don't know why. It's just something that I've grown up towards where I just really enjoy harvest. So for me, it's kind of a go, 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 and then go some more. It's just a busy season. And I think anybody that's been in a busy season can really relate to that, to where it's just like go, 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 and then go some more. And then all of a sudden, it's over. All of a sudden, maybe it slows down a little bit and things change. And now you're asking yourself, okay, well, now what? So for me, when it comes to the busy season, harvest, springtime, any busy season, I start running off of pure adrenaline. So I feel like I'm starting to run off of, it doesn't matter how hard the work is, how long the hours are, I just start running off of adrenaline. And when you're running off of adrenaline, honestly, it makes it easier because you're just going and you don't mind the go. You don't mind the hard work. You're just going hard all the time. And the one thing I'll say is when it comes to running off of adrenaline, it makes it hard to stop. It makes it hard to stop. Or the other side there, the alternative is you crash. And so I feel like some people maybe have realized that or have been there and kind of know what that feels like. So talking about the whole making it hard to stop, especially when we're running off of adrenaline, for me, I think that's where I was thinking about this term or the word more or less dopamine. Now, if you've never really heard of the word dopamine, I've heard this thrown around a few times, but what is dopamine? Dopamine is released when you do something enjoyable or beneficial, which can create a feeling of pleasure or reward, causing you to essentially want to do it again. Now, to a certain extent, this can sound like an addiction, right? I think that's one thing when it comes to harvest that I feel like people can really get a pretty big dopamine hit off of harvest, off of the busy season, off of basically doing something that they really enjoy that's beneficial for them. And I feel like I'm definitely the same way. And now, like I said, this sounds like an addiction, right? Well, to a certain extent, it can be. Now, let's be honest. If you think about how you see farming and harvest, or maybe something else that you really enjoy, some other busy season within your operation, if we want to just continually keep doing it, well, that's kind of a bit of an addiction. Now, sometimes I feel like we use the word addiction in a pretty negative way, and it sure can be. It sure can be, but it also can be a good thing because I feel like going back to the busy season and when we're just trying to get as much done as we can in a short amount of time, I look at those times as being just super productive, super efficient. Those are the times we really hammer things out, and those are the times that can make it really fun. But going back to an addiction, is this can also, like I said, can be a bad thing. Now, when it comes to me, going back to the harvest, going back to having almost a little bit of dopamine effect with that, something that I really enjoy, not necessarily wanting to quit. So for us, a little bit about our operation is we don't actually farm like a ton of acres. And I feel like we generally, on a good year anyways, we can knock out our harvest pretty quick, probably quicker than most around us, or at least quicker than a lot of the big guys. And so, I always feel like that we get done sooner. So I want to keep doing it. I want to keep busy. I want to keep helping other people to harvest. So that's generally what we do is we'll get ours out of the way and maybe we'll turn around and maybe help a neighbor or a friend or a family member or somebody else that just needs help. And that's something that I feel like can be hard to understand, that from maybe the outside looking in is if you get done with the busy season, why would you turn around and go back into the busy season? Well, for me anyways, and this is just me portraying my side of things, is it's something that I enjoy, something that I get some dopamine from. I like helping other people out, like helping them with the time that I enjoy as well. So to switch things here when it comes to post-harvest, like we're currently in, I think for us, the thing that I want to talk about is slowing down or maybe switching gears. So think about in your situation, what is post-harvest like for you? Or maybe just post the busy season. Maybe you're an ag business owner or maybe a seed dealer. Or the busy season is the springtime with, seed planting and all that other stuff, fun getting the seed out the door. What is the post-busy season like for you? Or maybe it's post-calving or post-weaning. Whatever that is, what is it like for you? Are you able to slow down? Do you slow down? Do you take a break? Do you maybe go on a quick little getaway to kind of refresh and maybe unwind a little bit? Or are you, like in this case, post-harvest, are you full speed ahead before winter actually comes and hits? So that's the thing here is I think most people maybe have this idea of post-harvest. Okay, once that last row is harvested, things slow down. Well, in most cases, it's actually the opposite. I used to joke because, around our operation is once harvest is over, that's when the second busy season actually gets started. It's the post-harvest. It's before winter comes. It's all the fall work that needs to be done, especially if you are in a diversified operation. For us back a couple years ago when we had all of our cows, post-harvest was actually a lot busier than harvest because there was so much stuff to do. I felt like you were kind of on this invisible time crunch before winter comes and you can actually not do as much anymore. So I feel like it was actually busier than one might actually think. And so what does that look like for you? Are you slowing down? Are you switching gears? I think that's the thing for me that I was thinking about is it's actually hard because when it comes to harvest time, when it comes to that busy season, as hard of the work it is, as long as the hours that are, you know exactly what you need to do. You need to get in the combine, you need to get in the truck, you need to harvest the crop, and you need to keep moving and get that done. Now, once that's done, that's to where it can actually be a challenge to switch gears, to maybe just slow down a little bit, or even if you're not slowing down, you're going to keep moving ahead and trying to get everything accomplished before winter comes in and hits. It's still just kind of hard to switch gears because all of a sudden, the one thing that you've been focusing on, the one thing that's been top priority for the last month and a half, whatever it's been, all of a sudden that's done and over with. And you need to shift gears to working on everything else that needs to be accomplished. And that can actually be sometimes overwhelming because all of a sudden you need to actually sit down and figure out what needs to happen before we get into, say, winter times, and you're not going to be as able to do some of that work anymore. It's just the matter of shifting gears and trying to figure out what needs to be taken care of and not what needs to be accomplished. That's where I want to go into this next thing here. Now, you've probably heard me talking about working on the business versus working in the business. I've mentioned this before. I think this is something that we need to constantly bring up because it's something that we ultimately struggle with. This is something that I struggle with because going back to basically everything that I talked about before, when we're in this go, go, go mindset, running off of adrenaline, hard to shut down, keep moving forward kind of basically mentality, I get into that as well. So, okay, we get our crop out of the field, harvest is over. I want to keep going. I want to keep going, take on this to-do list that we need to do before winter comes and hits. I'm full speed ahead. That's just the way that my body, my mind works. And so for us, it's hard to necessarily shift gears to maybe working on the business, maybe working inside of the office, trying to do some of that work that needs to be done. So kind of going back to the whole time management thing, going back to the 80-20 rule, basically doing 20% of your time that gets you 80% of the results. That's basically the 80-20 rule there. Things that we need to do to realize that if I'm going to be successful in my business, working on my business, I need to maybe take a step back and maybe actually accomplish some things in the office, or maybe just working on the overall vision of the operation and what needs to be taken care of. That's the 80-20 rule. And it's easy to continue focusing on working in the business, meaning in the day-to-day grind of getting things done and taking care of business. That to me is easy. That's the whole get outside and get shit done and get things taken care of mentality. And that to me is easy because that's ultimately the way that I was taught, trained, and conditioned as I've grown up over the years. And so that's one thing that I feel like is pretty common for most of us, is because we just want to go do. We're doers. We want to be productive. We want to get things accomplished. Well, realizing sometimes the bigger accomplishment is realizing that it's okay to take a step back and try to work on your business. So that's one thing I want to kind of focus on here is just like you have the realization that winter is coming soon and that you need to get things accomplished, you also need to have the realization that the end of the year is coming soon. So I think that can be a really good mindset shift there if we can try to focus on, yes, there's lots of things that need to be accomplished outside that need to be accomplished in the fall before winter sets in, before we've got this invisible time clock that actually ticks and it runs out essentially. There's the same thing there when it comes to working on the business, maybe working in the office, trying to get caught up on some different things, trying to get caught up on bills or booking your inputs for next year, or maybe working on your cash flow projections or break evens so that way you can actually book your inputs for next year, making some of these decisions prior to the end of the year, maybe doing some tax planning. Those are the things that I'm talking about, getting caught up basically from everything that you probably put off the last, 45 days, 2 months, whatever that busy season is, the season that it's really easy to forget or push off some of these things because they don't need to be done 100% right now versus taking out the crap, doing the things that are top priority. It's easy to push these things off. It's easy to push off working on the business. Well, this is maybe the time of year when we need to realize, okay, we've accomplished a lot. We've gotten things taken care of. We've been able to do our number one priority of taking out the crap, getting our busy season out of the way. Now let's maybe shift our mindset a little bit so we can focus on being proactive, caught up, but also being proactive as we get into this last quarter and the last couple months of basically the year. So that's where I think we can maybe have this mindset shift a little bit. So ultimately, what can you do? You listening to this, what can you do? Well, things that I'm trying to think about here is let's maybe first take a breath. Take a breath, because ultimately, I feel like that's something we forget to do. I forget to do it. Like I said before, I'm a go, go, go mindset kind of person. And so I want to keep getting things accomplished. Well, I think it's important for us to take a breath. Also, give yourself some grace and acknowledge everything that you and your team have accomplished in the past. And I think this is a very important thing for us to do. I think this is also why it's important for us to hold weekly team meetings. Now, it's one thing that we've tried to implement within our operation is a Monday morning meeting. And we usually do this, even if it's just you and your spouse, you and your dad. Maybe you do have 3-4 other employees that you can have on your team. And maybe it's just having that weekly team meeting. And one thing that we do on that meeting is we acknowledge our wins from last week. What are our last week's wins? Now, sometimes, literally all we did last week was combine corn. And it may look like that's just one line item that we accomplished. But in the grand scheme of things, maybe that was 200-300 acres that we combined. We actually got a lot accomplished. And we need to give ourselves some credit and also give ourselves some grace if things didn't happen quite perfectly. I think that's one thing that we can remember is give ourselves some credit, but also give ourselves some grace and acknowledge the things that we've accomplished, because that's one thing that we're not generally very good at is acknowledging our accomplishments. And not to pat yourself on the back or give yourself an ego boost or just, we got all this stuff accomplished. We're awesome. But it's more or less just to give ourselves a boost of confidence and give ourselves the acknowledgement that we have accomplished a lot with our time, that we have done good things, and the team has done good things, and they've helped us get us to where we are today. So I think that's very important, one thing that we can do with that team meetings there. The other thing here with taking a breath is also take a break. Now, I need to realize that I need to basically sometimes eat my own medicine here or take my own medicine. And it's probably a good thing that my wife no longer edits these episodes. We've maybe subbed the editing out And so if she would hear this, she'd probably force me to take a break because that's one thing that I struggle with. Like I mentioned before, I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is taking a break. Maybe that's going on a couple-day little getaway with the family, because even though you're the one that's probably put all these hours in, it doesn't mean that the wife and the kids at home or those on the home front have not suffered or have not felt the effects of the long hours or the busy season or the harvest season. They definitely have. So maybe take a quick little getaway. Maybe take just even a day to go to the pumpkin patch or go do something. Take a break, maybe quit early, try to be around for bedtime or supper time. Just take a breath and take a break. That's one thing that I need to try to do as well. And so to move on here, the next one that I think is going to be important with everything that we've talked about is the prioritize and execute. Because as I mentioned before, once the so-called busy season is over with, the second busy season or the post-busy season, which is usually generally just as busy because there's so much more things that we need to do, we need to realize that we need to prioritize those tasks and then work on executing them. So the whole prioritize and execute, where that comes from for me is I'm taking this from the book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I've referenced this book a lot. You're probably getting tired of me referencing it, but if you have not listened to it, go ahead and do that. It's a great book, or read it, I guess, but I always listen to my stuff. I've listened to that one a couple times. Always a good book here, and they talk about prioritize and execute. So oftentimes in the busy season or even the post-busy season, I keep talking about busy season. Well, I feel like in farming and ranching and being a business owner and entrepreneur, there's basically busy seasons, really busy seasons, and then less busy seasons. Ultimately, at the end of the day, everything is busy. There's always work to do and things that need to be taken care of. So when it comes down to, when we get overwhelmed with everything that needs to be taken care of or accomplished, and that's what happens to me is once we take care of harvest, that's our number one priority. It's pretty easy because we know exactly what we need to do. Once that's out of the way, we've got this whole slew of things that we need to do. We get overwhelmed with our to-do list. We get overwhelmed with everything that needs to be accomplished. We get overwhelmed with trying to prioritize what's actually important, what actually needs to be taken care of versus what can actually maybe wait. So I think that's important here. If we can try to prioritize these things, list everything out that needs to be taken care of and accomplished, and by when. Maybe there's some things that need to be accomplished by the end of the month. Maybe there's some things that need to be accomplished by the end of the day. And maybe there's some things that really just need to be accomplished before the snow flies. So there's things there that we can make. When does that need to be accomplished so that way we can use that to help prioritize these different tasks. Now list everything out. Now, I mean everything that needs to be taken care of, both outside in the day-to-day, outside taken care of with the livestock or maybe the crops or maybe the fall field work, outside items, as well as everything inside of the office, everything that involves basically working on the business, everything that needs to be taken care of. List it all out. Do your best to prioritize it and when it needs to be taken care of. And that can be the hard thing about some of this stuff is because it doesn't necessarily need to be taken care of now. It doesn't need to happen now. But I'll ask you on some of those things, and I'm specifically talking about working on the business, going back up to, working on the cash flow projections or the break-even projections or the things that we don't necessarily want to do. It's pretty easy to put off because there's things to do outside. I'm going to ask you to think about what is the alternative if those don't happen. Are you going to be proactive as you need to be moving into the end of the year or maybe booking your fertilizer or your inputs? What is the alternative if you don't focus on those things and work on the business and make them a priority? Now, going back to just listing everything out, prioritize them. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that you should not be focusing on some things that need to happen outside. Because I'm not going to lie to you. When I get done with this, I'm going to probably go out and drill some cover crops and start working on some of that stuff. But I'm also trying to prioritize my time so I can still focus some of my time on my business and working on things that need to be taken care of inside of the office, inside of the things that need to be taken care of as well. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try to be a hypocrite here because the reality is there is stuff that needs to be taken care of outside. So try to prioritize it the best that you can and balance it out. Balance it out. Try to prioritize your time so you're spending a little bit of time working on your business inside of the office, doing things that need to be taken care of, but also still getting outside and taking care of business. And so that's the thing that I think is important there. And then ultimately, execute it. Execute it to the best of your ability. Try your hardest. And then at the end of the day, give yourself some grace and acknowledge the things that you have accomplished. That's one thing I need to try to do the best that I can. At the end of the day, we're just trying to do the best that we can out here as fathers, as husbands, wives, mothers, brothers, business owners, entrepreneurs. We're just trying to do the best that we can. So really, that's about all I got for now. That's what I'm dealing with right now, post-harvest, post-busy season. And I hope this all makes sense to you. I hope this resonates with you. If there's anything that I can help you with, maybe trying to focus on working on the business, maybe trying to help you build out those cash flow projections and break evens, or maybe even looking at potentially tax planning, especially as we get into the one thing I didn't mention real quick here, as we get into the end of the year, as we get in closer to renewal season with our line of credits. That's one thing that I can kind of help you focus on as well. So please feel free to reach out to me with Pioneer Farmer, and I'll do the best that I can to support you and to help you maybe prioritize some of these different tasks. So I hope this makes sense to you and hope this resonates, hits home with you. And for now, that's all I got, and get after it. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.